So today in class we started going over the study guide, and so I wanted to make sure that you had some time to finish correcting it on your own. So don't forget, you should put a check mark if the answer that you received was correct, and you should put a circle around the number that you may not have gotten correctly, and change your answer and make the corrections dependent on the strategies that I'm using to solve the problems. So if I recall, I finished pages 1 and 2, and so we're going to start the review with page 3. Letter I says, Mrs. Wade drove 105 miles in 2.5 hours. What was Mrs. Wade's speed in miles per hour? There's a few ways we can do this. We can cross multiply, so we can start by saying 105 over 2.5 equals x over 1. And we can do our cross multiplication by drawing our butterfly and actually doing the multiplication. So 105 times 1 is still 105. X times 2.5 is 2.5 x's. So we'll need to divide by 2.5 on both sides in order to get an answer, which in this case is going to be 42 equals x. So letter B, 42 miles per hour. You could also solve this problem by realizing that there are 5 halves in 2.5. So if you divide 105 by 5, you're going to get 21 miles per half hour, so 42 miles per hour. Letter J says a restaurant charges a single price for its buffet. The total bill for a table of 6 people having the buffet was $294. Each of the 8 people at a second table also had the buffet. What was the total bill at the second table? Well, the answer that I got was letter A, $392. And the way that I did this is that I decided if $294 was the cost for 6 buffets, then I would divide 294 by 6 to get the price per buffet order. So 294 divided by 6 equals $49 for the buffet for one person. So if I want to feed 8 people, then I do 49 times 8, and that gave me my 392. Letter K says Patty knows that a 45-ounce pitcher can hold enough lemonade for 6 people. At this rate, how many ounces of lemonade will Patty need to serve 26 people? The answer that I got was 195 ounces, and I did that by thinking, again, if 45 ounces will be enough for 6 people, then I did 45 divided by 6 to figure out how much lemonade would be enough for one person. So 7.5 ounces. So if I want to feed 26 people, 26 times 7.5 ounces is 195 ounces. Letter L says on a standardized test, Paul answered the first 22 questions in 5 minutes. There are 77 questions on the test. If he continues to answer the questions at the same rate, how long will it take him to complete the test from start to finish? Well, if he does 22 questions in 5 minutes, and there are 77 questions total, I would just set up the proportion. 22 over 5 equals 77 over x. Cross multiply, so we get 22 x's is equal to 5 times 77, which is 385, and we divide both sides by 22. So x is equal to 100. Hold on. X is equal to 17.5 minutes. and that's to take the whole test. Letter M, the scale on a map is 1¼ inches is equal to 100 miles. So on the physical map, when you measure with a ruler 1¼ inches, in real life it means 100 miles. On the map, there are two cities that are 4 1/8 of an inch apart. How far are they apart in real life, right? What's the actual distance between the cities? If you notice, I changed those fractions into decimals so that I could cross-multiply it more simply, but it's up to you whether you would like to do this or not. The answer that I got was letter B, 330 miles. And when I cross-multiply, I had 1.25 x's equals 412.5. And then I did my division, and I got 330 miles. You could have also looked at this problem and thought about the fact that is the same as 1.25, right? And so for every 1 inch, how many miles is it? And then you could have gone with the unit rate in that example. However, if you got 330 miles by cross-multiplying, then that should be the best strategy. Letter N, the length between the bases on a Major League Baseball diamond is 90 feet. Allison wants to make a scale drawing of the baseball field. If the bases are 2½ inches apart in her scale drawing, what is Allison's scale? The scale really means what is the distance when we're looking at 1 inch, right? So if 90 feet is 2½ inches, what is 1 inch in real life? And again, you can cross-multiply. The answer that I got was 1 inch is equal to 36 feet. You may also want to use the strategy we used before, where in 2½ there are 5 halves. So if you divide 90 by 5, you'd get a value of 18 for every ½ inch. So times 2 would equal 36 for every 1 inch, or per inch. The next page of the study guide has the graph, and hopefully when you take a look at the graph, your memory was refreshed in terms of an x-axis and a y-axis. So this problem says, which equation shows the relationship between the number of uniforms x and the cost y? All I want to do is pick a data point. So let's say I pick 2. That means when I have 2 uniforms, it costs me $40. So if uniforms is x and cost is y, then when I substitute the number 2 in for an x, I should get the number 40 for y. Luckily, that letter A makes sense and is the correct answer right away. 20 times 2 is equal to 40, so that would be correct. Then it says, what's the unit cost of a uniform? What's the cost of 1 uniform? Well, 1 uniform is $20. And lastly, how much would it cost to order 8 uniforms? Well, that should be $20 times 8 uniforms. Finally, we'll take a look at the last page, which is all about multi-step ratios and proportions. Problem number 1 says, what value of x makes this proportion true? All you want to do is cross-multiply and make sure that you're getting an x value, that when you simplify both fractions, they're equivalent to each other. So the answer that I got was C, x equals 80. And I know that's correct because 14 divided by 20 compared to 56 divided by 80. When I simplify these two fractions, 14/20 simplifies to 7/10. And 56/80 I know can be divided by 4. And so when I do that, I get 14/20 simplified again by 2 gives me 7/10. So in fact, these fractions are equal to one another, so it's a proportional relationship when x is equal to 80. T says, which table represents a proportional relationship? Again, you want to make sure that the fractions are equivalent across the board. So the first one has 3 sixths, which I know is equal to 1/2, and then the next value over is 5/9, which is not equal to 1/2. So this is not going to work. Letter B says 1/5. 1/5 does not equal 2/8, so that's not going to work. 2/6 is the same as 1/3, compared to 6/18, which is also 1/3, compared to 12/36, which is also 1/3, and 18/54, which again can simplify to 1/3. All of these values are proportional, so letter C is going to be your answer. Letter U, what is the constant rate of change of the table below? The constant rate of change, again, you want to think about meters per minute. So if you're traveling 30 meters per 10 minutes, how many meters are you traveling in 1 minute? And you can simplify and find a common factor. So if I'm traveling for 10 minutes, 10 divided by 10 equals 1, and I want to know what's my distance for 1 minute, so 30 divided by 10 is 3. My rate of change should be 3 meters per minute, or letter C. Letter B says, what's the value of W? What value of W makes this proportion true? Again, you want to cross multiply and decide what number is going to allow you to have two equivalent fractions. For my answer, I got letter D. Oops, I'm sorry, I got A. Letter W, I got D. And that was which pair of ratios does not form a true proportion. So which two ratios are not equivalent to each other? 12/15 and 3/40 are not equivalent because 12/15 simplifies to 4/5 and 30/40 simplifies to 3/4. So those are not equal. Letter X, the answer is not actually there, but if you solve for C by cross multiplying, you should be getting the correct response. It is not an option A, B, C, or D. So don't forget that I would like you to make sure you are studying for your test over the weekend, and in doing that, you should check through all the examples in the study guide to see if they're correct or incorrect. If they're correct, please put a check mark. Incorrect, circle it and make any changes that you need to the problem so that it is correct. Good luck, guys. Study hard.